Hello. Hi, dear ones. Hello. Welcome to your self-love sermon for the week. So good to be back with all of you. My name is Ellen Gilbert, and I am a self-love coach. I am really excited for tonight's topic. We're going to be talking about healing internalized capitalism. So if you are curious about what that means, if you're someone who has experienced burnout or feel like you're currently experiencing burnout, if you feel like you're stuck in this cycle of consuming, producing, and you can really tell that you're being marketed to and sold this lemon of an idea that you are what you produce. Hi, Ryan, welcome. Then you're in the right place, because we're going to be talking about it all tonight, dear ones. And we've got your guided meditation, we've got your embodiment practice. We're going to do a little ritual tonight. So thank you for showing up and joining me for this intentional hour focused on your self-love, your self-care, a little mindful moment in your day, spending it with me. I'm so, so grateful. Your time really is sacred, and to spend it together. So if this is your first sermon, I go live every Tuesday on Instagram and Facebook, and I share the replay as a podcast in my weekly newsletter. And I also create a blog post at my blog, luminousleanings.com. So you can head over there, sign up for updates, and just keep this party going. Don't stop self-caring. I'm here for you every day of the week, your self-love coach. And I love holding space for you here in this format. This is I think it's our 10th sermon. This is awesome. I started these up during this age of the pandemic, and it's been really a lovely way for me to feel connected to a community, to witness and be witnessed. And trust me, every time I select a sermon topic, it's because I need to hear this message as much as you do, if not more. I'm really coaching myself here, talking about internalized capitalism. We'll get into all of it tonight. You might want to grab some paper and a pen or a pencil, because we are going to do a little writing ritual at the end of the sermon tonight. And of course, grab your candle, grab something to burn, because this is the Church of Self-Love. So we've got lots of candles and the flame together tonight. All right. So, as you all know, I give these sermons weekly, free of charge. That's why I go live on Facebook and Instagram. This is my weekly community offering. And if you would like to make a donation to the work of Luminous Leanings, to my mission of spreading the good news about self-love and self-care, and eventually opening a retreat center, then you can make your donation at luminousleanings.com/make-a-donation. I've just shared the link in the Facebook group. And you can also head to my website, luminousleanings.com. If you get something out of tonight and you are able to make that energetic exchange with me, or if you're listening to the replay and you really got something out of this, I would encourage you to show me and make a donation. Every little bit helps. Thank you so much. Another thing you can do to support this message is to go ahead and share this video. Let people know, hey, I'm inside this self-love sermon. I think that you should join me. We're talking about internalized capitalism, and it's going to be a really nice bookend to your work day tonight. We're going to get cozy. We're going to do some learning. I'm excited. All right. So we'll go ahead and light our candles, dear ones. And once you arrive, pop a comment in the chat below. I can see who's here on Instagram. I cannot see who is with me on Facebook. So if you want to let me know, like, hey, I'm checking in, I'm here, I would really appreciate it. And as always, we light our candle. And Luna panics, my dog. As long as this candle is burning, this candle's on its last limb. As long as this candle is burning, though, we are practicing self-love in this safe space, in this beautiful community. And I honor each of you and your beautiful intention to love yourself more, to learn more, and to just hold this container for all of us here tonight. Thank you so much. Hi, Micah. Hi, dear one. Who else is with me on Facebook? Let me know. Put a comment in the chat below. I would love to welcome you in. And a reminder, if this is your first sermon, if you do answer any questions that I ask, or if you have any questions, you're basically saying to me it's okay for you to say my first name, because I will call you out by name, makes it all a little more personal, makes it feel like we're here together. All right. Okay. So the check-in question for tonight, the first question, what was your relationship to productivity like today? What was your relationship to productivity like today? However you want to answer that, whatever that feels like for you. I had a day of like, when you're like trying to hold on to the rope and you're like trying to pull the day back into yourself. You're like, where did the time go? It was actually the first time I've had an appointment in the morning. I had a dentist appointment that I had to go to because I've had pain. And I like haven't had to leave the house in the morning in a long time. So it felt like my whole day was kind of sucked into this vortex. And in terms of my inner relationship, though, I think because I knew I was going to be talking about this very subject of internalized capitalism, I was really careful to have compassion for myself, to constantly be checking in. I'm also premenstrual this week. So as many of you know, I'm very open about my menstrual cycle. I think it's really important. And we'll talk about why with internalized capitalism, but I knew my energy was going to be low. I knew I would need to check in with my body. And I knew that if I got, this sermon done tonight and I was able to be present with you all, that would feel like a big check for the day. So that was such a blessing. Hi, Caitlin. She says, work productivity consumed me today. Oh, dear one. Yes. Oof. I know what that's like. Well, you made it to the other side. You're here. Congratulations. That's really good. Micah says, constantly had the narrative that I should be doing and producing more and feeling guilty and anxious that I wasn't doing more. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, it's good that you're aware and you're calling it a narrative, or maybe it's a story you're telling yourself. It's that belief system, right? It's not the truth of who you are. Maybe it's not your highest self, which is important to give a little separation there. Very good, dear ones. Anyone else would like to share? What was your relationship like to productivity today? Would love to hear. And I love to call it a relationship because everything's a relationship. How we relate to ourselves and our own experience creates our quality of life. Like, life is going to happen to you, dear ones. Things that are out of your control. I'm sure you already know this, but just a reminder, how you relate to it is everything. And if you can relate to it with compassion, that's where it all gets so good. All right, thank you for sharing, dear ones. right away, we're going to dive into a little guided meditation. So, finding a comfortable position for yourself tonight. You can sit with your spine relaxed yet energized. Even Luna's getting into it. She's over here sighing. Taking a deep breath in, letting the energy travel from your feet all the way up to the tip of the crown of your head. Holding at the top and letting it go. Great job. Again, in through the feet, all the way up through the crown of the head. Hold and release. One more time. Breathing in through the feet, up through the calves, the knees, the legs, everything, all the way to the crown of the head. And hold at the top. And with a big sigh, let it go. You can move your neck around, shake out the body in any way that feels good. Talking about capitalism, our bodies have become these machines, so just let them flow with feminine fluidity. Shaking things out. And settling in. Letting your breath happen naturally, but consciously. Feeling the outline of your body. Feeling the spirit continue on past the outline of the body. Activating your heart center, opening the chest, tapping into that compassionate place that led you here tonight. Self-love sermon, self-love intention. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and just reflect, letting your answer be led from the heart. Are you living your life like it's a problem to be solved? Are you trying to negotiate how much you can do with the energy you have? Are you hustling for your worthiness? How would you be if you believed you were already enough? Letting the answers come through the heart, through the body. Perhaps being a sensation or an emotion rather than words or concepts. Can you connect to the energy of doing? What does that feel like in the body? Can you connect to the energy of being? And what's the difference? Placing the hands at heart center. Breathing in deeply a few times at your own pace. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Hi. Welcome back, dear ones. I always see colors more vividly when we're done meditating. What was your experience with that like? Did you feel any answers in your body or in your emotions? Just a nice little inquiry to get us grounded. Questions are so powerful. There really are no right or wrong answers. It's really about the questions, isn't it? In life in general. That's why I love being a coach. All right, so healing internalized capitalism. What are we talking about and how do you do it? Okay, so I was actually surprised a journalist reached out to me for an interview about internalized capitalism. Like maybe I had used a couple hashtags, I'm not sure. She called me an expert. At first I was like, no, and then I was like, wait, I need to stand in my truth and claim my expertise. And I don't want to have imposter syndrome. So instead of being like, no, 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 you've got the wrong person, I was like, yes, I will take your interview. And she's writing a piece on this very topic. And so after the interview, I was like, yeah, this is what we've got to talk about in Self-Love Sermon. It's so essential, dear ones. So to define internalized capitalism, I think I would say it's when we measure our worth, our self-worth by our output. Okay, how many beads of sweat were on your brow today? Like, how many emails got sent? You know what I'm talking about. How much money did you earn? How much money did you make at the corporation that you work for? And on the flip side, it's measuring our shame by our lack of energy. So knowing how much shame we have to take with us into our evening based on how little energy we had in the day or what is left on our to-do list at the end of the day. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. Because I don't know about y'all, but I have had to come to terms with some really intense self-shaming around energy and around what I didn't get done at the end of the day. And even as a self-love coach, like I am really still in the middle of this struggle for myself. And that's why we're talking about this tonight. So let's check in with some answers here. Micah says, my shoulders immediately loosened when you asked how it would feel if we believed we were already worthy. Yeah, such a powerful inquiry and really gets right to the heart of the physical embodiment of it. So the shoulders releasing, that doesn't surprise me at all. Caitlin says, when you said, are you living your life like a problem you are trying to solve? That hit me hard. Yeah, guess who gave me that little nugget of wisdom? Tara Brock, who I always talk about, my spiritual teacher. She says, what if you lived your life? Oh no, she says, life is an experience. What does she say? Life is an experience to be inhabited, not a problem to be solved. It's like my favorite quote of all time. Yeah, it's really relevant to internalized capitalism, what we're going to talk about tonight. Yes, thank you for sharing, dear ones. And if anyone has questions or reflections throughout this entire hour together, just throw them out there knowing I might share them. So That's my definition of internalized capitalism I just shared. If you have another definition, I'd love to hear it. Um, so, another reason I wanted to talk about it tonight, last week we talked about letting the inner good girl go, and a few weeks before that we talked about perfectionism. So, this is all like on the same track. These are all different mechanisms through which we experience shame as a tool to control our lives. And I'm all about suffering. How can we reduce suffering in our inner life? And so we really have to understand these inner managers, the inner critics. Bye, Raya. Thanks for joining. We really need to understand these different parts of ourselves in order to wake up out of the cycles of shame and suffering, dear ones, because we are worthy and we belong, right? All right. And so, yeah, it's all about the systems that we live under. So we live under the system of capitalism. We live under the system of patriarchy. We live under the system of white supremacy and colonialism. And some of us majorly benefit from these systems. Some of us don't. And we have intersectional layers of privilege and benefiting or not benefiting from these systems. But they become internalized in all of us. That's how they function. They function without oversight because we are the overseers. We are the oversight mechanism for these systems. And so, again, the self-management happens through the inner critic, through the good girl, right? Through the perfectionism, through all of these pieces. So this is just another layer, another way of looking at it, and it can be really useful, I think, especially in terms of how we make money, how we create wealth, how we view our work lives, and for many of us, that's most of our lives, so it's really important that we look at this. Okay, so internalized capitalism is the guilt and shame to keep you productive. It all comes down to productivity. And I like to say it keeps us in the cycle of produce, consume, produce, consume, produce, consume, produce, consume, right? If we're not producing, then we are probably mindlessly consuming something, some content, some good or service, some information. And honestly, we tend to do both of these things mindlessly, without intention, without consciousness, without being awake to what's even happening. That's how we get in this like hamster wheel cycle. And we can't really talk about just the production side without also looking at the consumption side. And it can be hard to look at our consumption habits. That can be really uncomfortable for everyone, especially Americans. I mean, all of this is like, I'm talking to you, America, but really the whole world, because, you're welcome, world. We've exported it. Thanks, globalization. Okay. So, you could even be thinking right now, well, if I'm not producing and I'm not consuming, like, what am I doing? What are you doing when you're not producing and consuming? And even like, who am I? If I'm not a producer or a consumer. I think that, talk about an impactful inquiry. Who am I if I'm not producing or consuming? And that's the point. It's become so internalized that we build our entire identity on being a producer and being a consumer. Whether or not we're using that language, but using that language can help us wake up. Because it's very tragic to see ourselves this way. To see ourselves caught in a system. And I don't think it's really something we can fully recover from. I don't think it's something that it's like, well, you're going to do X, Y, Z, and at the end of this sermon, you're not going to be a little internal capitalist. Like, no, you are a capitalist. You're in the system. I'm in the system. I'm benefiting in many ways from the system. And it's really about waking up. And I've said before, it's all about forgetting and remembering, going to sleep and waking up, going to sleep and waking up. As many times as we can wake up out of our own internalized capitalism, we will experience healing. We won't experience the suffering. and we will be able to heal the patterns that we've had a hand in creating in our own lives. So really breaking this cycle of production and consumption. So I think I want to start with mindless consumers. So you have a mindless consumer and you have a mindless producer. And luckily you also have an intentional, conscious, awake consumer and an intentional, conscious, awake producer inside of you. And we want to wake them up. Okay. So, mindless consumers. Why would society want us to be mindless consumers? Anyone have any ideas on this? I'm going to take a sip of kombucha. Sponsored by, just kidding. I wish. Um, why would society want this of us to be mindlessly consuming? And consuming isn't just what you're paying for, it's all content. It could even be services. It's anything that is filling up your day and your time. It's things that you do. It's really things that you do and tend to be things that you're doing without intention. So why would society want this of us? Because we're not going to create a revolution in the streets if we're numbed out or escaping through mindless consumption, right? So we've got our McDonald's and our Netflix, maybe we'll stay numb enough, maybe we'll stay out of our body enough to where we can't access rage, righteous anger, all of the emotions and the consciousness that are going to add up to force us to riot in the streets and demand, right? Demand justice. It's like what we talked about with the inner good girl. It's the same kind of concept, keeping us docile in our place so that we don't demand justice in society and in the world for our families, for our sisters and brothers. Micah says, spend more money, take in whatever messages these systems benefit from us believing, create a demand for more producers. Yes, so good. That's why it's a cycle, right? Producing and consuming. And it's exactly right. As long as we can get addicted to consuming, we will have to be regularly, constantly producing more and more. And we are absolutely feeding the bottom line of these corporations that, quite frankly, have, the GDP of more than many small countries. So yeah, that's a really good point. Those are all good points, Micah. It is so true. So, I'm not saying that we shouldn't consume. I'm up for a good Netflix binge. I mean, I'm pretty sure I watched like an entire season of This Is Us this weekend. I consume. I definitely consume. I'm a good little capitalist. And I'm just saying, if we can do it with intention, I believe we will suffer less. I really do, because I think there is a part of you, right, that doesn't want to overly participate in these systems. So pay attention when you are consuming to why it feels good. How do you know it feels good? Set your own boundaries, set your limits, and check in with them regularly. If you break them, can you have self-compassion? Do you need to rework the boundaries? But those boundaries are so important because everything now is set up to addict us, right? Everything from social media to streaming platforms, food, everything is engineered to addict you. So you have a responsibility to set boundaries. Boundaries are the manifestation of your intention, and without them, the corporations win. And you definitely lose, dear one. So what if, when it came to money, we set our budgets with intention? Can you imagine how radical that would be? I think donating and giving to charity is one of the most uncapitalist things we can do. So I like to do it often. how often do you open your wallet, even if it's just to give $5 to a cause that really, causes your eyes to well up with tears or your heartstrings to just be pulled. And if you did that more regularly, maybe your relationship with consumption and with money would shift. I think also taking intention to choose who you shop with and why is really important. It feels better when we know where our products are coming from, if certain standards that we care about are being upheld. It just feels like we're more conscious and awake for our lives rather than just on autopilot, just doing whatever's convenient because we've been programmed and we are constantly told to buy those products or those services. Taking another sip. All right, Caitlin says, I find my overconsumption is social media. Oh, yes, sweetheart, join the club. I feel ya. That's a big one. I did write a blog post a couple weeks ago on consuming mindfully, not mindlessly. I really recommend you check it out at luminousleanings.com. I talk about setting boundaries with social media and the news and streaming platforms and all of the above. So I really recommend you check that out and set those boundaries. Really be intentional with them. All right. So that's the mindless consumption. Now we're going to talk about mindless production. Why would we become little mindless producers? What do you think the purpose is? Or what feeds into it? What makes us into this internalized capitalist? It's really so we can create wealth. Not really for ourselves, but for others. Whether it's spending the money we're earning, feeding the bottom line of these corporations, or even if we become our own bosses, trust me, becoming your own boss is not the solution for internalized capitalism because it's internalized. You bring it with you. So there's always unpacking to do. There's always rewiring to do. And it's something we have to be vigilant about. We're trying to manage this hamster wheel of productivity day in and day out. And it doesn't feel good, dear ones. It doesn't feel good. It certainly doesn't feel like self-care. So producing doesn't, just like consumption isn't only the stuff you buy, producing isn't only your job or income source, It's anything you do under the guise of, I'm hustling for my worthiness. Whether you're aware of it or not. So become aware, step one. If you're listening to this, you probably already have some awareness and consciousness and awakening going on. So maybe share it with a friend who needs to hear it because so many of us are still asleep, dear ones. But are you hustling for your worthiness? Ask yourself this question throughout the day because it might not even be the work you're doing, but it's how you're doing it. It's the attitude and the relationship again to it. Anything you're doing trying to expend energy for belonging and worthiness, you need to think am I participating in internalized capitalism? Because you're copy pasting the same managerial hierarchy to these non-earning parts of your life as well. So something to think about. Doesn't only relate to career or work. Micah says we also get very identified with our role as producers in this society. Think about how often we ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if that's a critical part of your identity. As adults, what do you do is still one of the first things we ask people upon meeting them. It's so true, Micah. A great challenge for ourselves this week is to really restrain ourselves from asking people about their work. What are some other things we could ask? How do you define yourself instead of what do you do? Or what lights you up? I love asking people what's on their bucket list. That's one of my favorites. I'd love to hear your alternatives as well. So interesting. So all of this is becoming very trendy, hashtag hustle, grinding, nose to the grindstone, working it out, like all the subliminal and not so subliminal messaging about how we have to work. You know, the harder you work, the happier you will be. That's what we're being sold. And I really believe we know on some level this isn't true. You know, and so we suffer because it's like, well, then when will I be happy? If from birth we're taught that what you do is the most important part of your identity, then, you know, to kind of grow up and realize that it isn't the end all be all. It's not completely fulfilling. You know, what is the solution? What is the next step? That can be a real loss. Yeah. And we have to do quite a bit of grief work around this, dear ones. We're going to talk about that as well. But yeah, let's reject this lie. The harder you work, the happier you will be. Yeah, and again, the irony is many people are like, okay, I'll become my own #lady boss. You know, like, yeah, I'll be, you know, to be truly feminist, I'll be like a woman who becomes an entrepreneur. And I obviously did that, you know, like I did start my business and feel very lucky that it is panning out and that I do experience fulfillment. But there are some days when I try to contact my future self or my elder self and I really can't see past career. I can't see past, you know, imagining the details of my business and my clients and the impact I'll have, which is important to me. But recently I said to my husband, like, I really need to make sure that I'm not falling for this lie that my whole life should be my business. And I think business owners especially fall into this trap because it does feel like your baby. But it's not. Like the magic is in you and it's not based on, you know, what you've built monetarily. Maybe the impact is a better way to look at it, but there have to be other components of your fulfillment and your life if you really want to have a rich, balanced life. And I so do, dear ones. Micah says, friendly neighborhood therapist here remind you that living under these systems produces complex trauma. Capitalism and grind culture is violence. Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And self-care can heal that trauma. I really do believe this. And that's why we're here, dear ones. So what do we do with this? I'm going to skip part of what I had planned because I wrote a lot. There's a lot to say on this topic, dear ones. Maybe I'll send you some notes if you sign up for my newsletter. Maybe this Friday I'll send you the other things I had planned. But basically I want to get to, you know, how we heal it, right? Because healing is why we're here, dear ones. So the first one we're actually going to do together. So let's just shake it up. If you have a piece of paper, grab it. If you have a pen or a pencil, grab it. If you want to open a Word doc on your computer, we're going to do a little writing exercise. Okay. So we often beat ourselves up. Who's ever beat themselves up? Themselves up for being human. You know, like raise your hand if you beat yourself up for being freaking human, for having a heart that pumps blood and lungs that pump breath, like for having an expiration date, for being born of humans. Like, I don't know, whatever that means to you. Who has ever beat themselves up for being human? And like, yeah, I want to interrupt this because I noticed I was doing this. You know, and really what we're saying is you're bad because you're not a robot. You're bad because you're not a machine, you know? So I was thinking, what if we celebrated tonight all of the ways we are human? all of the ways we're not robots and we're not machines. Like, it's the other side of that coin of like maybe we can't produce nonstop. You know, maybe we do have physical, biological needs. Man, like maybe we do need sleep and a lot of it. Maybe we need, you know, certain things to function. You know, we gotta kind of like accept this. The other side of that coin is we get to freaking be human and we don't have to freaking be robots and machines. So I was thinking, let's make a list of all the things you can do that a robot can't do. And I'll share some of mine. I would love to hear yours, but if you want to write them somewhere, it'd be great to have this list to return to anytime you start beating yourself up for not being a robot. I call it my robot list. So here is my all the things I can do that a robot can't do. Or here's a few of them. I can feel the sun on my skin. It's like one of my favorite feelings. I can feel the grass under my feet. I can cry when a loved one dies. Hello. I can mourn. I can feel deep sadness and emotion. And I consider this a positive. I can remember. I can have memory, like real memory with emotion, with physicality of embodiment. You know, I can hold space for my loved ones. I can give a real warm hug with heart, with meaning. I can run and play and laugh, a genuine laugh. I can tell jokes. I can be a little bit insecure and a little bit vulnerable and a little bit nervous and blush when I get nervous. I can experience excitement and like rapid heartbeat. You know, I can experience romance and love. You know, I can receive kisses from my husband. I can feel it when he holds my hand. You know, and I'm conscious that one day I will die. And that is a gift. Once you accept it, it is a gift because I can live. I can live. I can carpe that diem. I can simply be if I choose to. I can take a sick day. A robot can't take a sick day. What are some things y'all can do that a robot can't do? It's one of my new favorite questions of all time. I would love to hear. We will keep going, but this is my number one healing recommendation. And then to post that list and look at it when you need a reminder. Like, yeah, I might not be a robot. I might not be able to produce all of the things on my to-do list today, but I can feel the sun on my skin. I can cry at a sunset. I can give my dog a big hug who's lying right here at my feet. You know, I can experience tenderness. Caitlin says reproduce. Yeah, that's a very good one. That was not on my list at all. Very, very true, Caitlin. We can have children. Yeah, absolutely. And care for and grow and nurture them. Micah says have empathy, swim, dream, pet dogs, feel a breeze, laugh, have humor, have goosebumps, feel pleasure, feel pain. Yes, dear one. Oh, I'm thinking like I can eat a meal. I can prepare something beautiful for my family. Like I get to sleep and that actually feels really good to like lie down in my bed at night and go to sleep, and I get to wake up. Like, all of these things. Wow, let's celebrate them. How beautiful that we get to experience this. This is the flip side of that coin. You are human. You are here. You are alive. You know, I like to say I am an earthling. It's sort of the antithesis of a machine. I am not a machine. I am an earthling. I'm of the earth. I have needs. I'm made of carbon. You know? So that's number one. Remind yourself you have needs, and it's a beautiful, wonderful, essential part of being human. Your limits. And then number two, cut out the energy shaming already. So I talked a little bit about this at the beginning. I have had to really wake up to my own energy shaming. I have a client who has a toddler, and she told me that she was trying to keep up with her 3-year-old's energy level. And I was like, you don't have to have the energy of a 3-year-old. Like, you know, you're in your 30s. It's okay. It's okay that you can't keep up, you know? But we all do this to ourselves. And this is part of internalized capitalism, the energy shaming. We've really got to notice when it's happening and wake up out of it, you know? And maybe it's creating a ritual, which we're going to talk about, or saying a mantra, which we're going to talk about. But notice, catch the energy shaming in its tracks. I really want you to practice that this week. It's so helpful for me, because if I can catch the shame, then I automatically will extend compassion to that part of myself. I'm like, oh, hustling for my worthiness. Not necessary. I am worthy. Number 3, remember the difference between intentions and goals. Both are important. And in my coaching program, we have an entire week focused on strategic planning. We talk about goals right off the bat. It's very structured and organized, because this is how we're wired, you know? This is part of our operating system. I should say we're programmed. I'm not sure we're wired naturally for this, but we're definitely programmed, myself included. So I am not saying we have to get rid of planning or goal setting or any of that, but just remember the difference between an intention and a goal, and both are important. So an intention comes from your heart. You know, it's really got to be from that aligned part of you, and it usually starts with may I be. You know, that would be sort of a way to mantra your intention. It's the way you want to be today. May I be productive could absolutely be your mantra. But what's the intention behind the productivity? Can you drill it down as deep as you can go? As like fine a grain of sand as you can get? What's underneath everything till you really get to the heart of it? Oh, well, I wanted to be productive, you know, so that I could rest and take the day off tomorrow. Or like, oh, I wanted to be productive because I know that this thing I'm doing is going to make this impact and I'm excited about it. Or like, oh, I need to be productive so I keep my job and, you know, get my paycheck and feed my family, which is a perfectly valid intention for doing work, dear ones. Just don't let your survival instincts get hijacked to the point where you're overextending yourself. You know, you're violating your own boundaries. And then goals are something else, right? They're head-led. They're led from the head. Intentions are led from the heart, and they necessarily bring the body along for the ride. If it's a true intention, you should be checking in with your body. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But I like to think intention, heart, and body, goal, head, both are important. We need them to be in sync. Okay, the key is really to blend an intention behind our to-do list with self-compassion for the things that didn't make it that day. You know, the things we didn't get to cross off. Compassion, forgiveness, so important. And then perhaps my favorite little healing thing is rituals we can create. So we can do ritual at the beginning of the workday. Remember, internalized capitalism mostly focuses on shame around productivity, so I am focusing a bit on the traditional workday, whatever works for you. But we could do a little ritual in the beginning of the workday, maybe at lunch, maybe at the end of the workday. Little check-ins. So I like to start the day with a body and a mood check-in. Just where am I at? How am I feeling? You know, like, oh, where's that pain coming from? Why is my energy so low? Why do I feel a bit guilty or a bit silly? Like, just noticing. Okay, this is that and that is this. We have to do this throughout the day. But to start the day is really radical because then your intention, right, comes from the body. So whether you have a spiritual practice or not, creating maybe a mantra, like we just said, may I this, at the beginning of the day is really helpful. And then, I like to say for my to-do list, I used to be taught that you should come up with your big 3 goals for the day, like as a business owner, like what are the 3 things you're going to get done today? And that was considered radical. And I tried that and that did not work because I found I was getting like one thing done every day. And I mean like big focus things. And so what works for me is to have one thing on my to-do list every day. I have like a little extra side list of like dreams, like I hope this happens. But there's one thing every day that has to get done. And I can then really focus on getting that one thing done and then releasing if need be, if I'm at my boundary, my time boundary for the day. And then, another ritual at the end of the day is sticking to those time boundaries. So if you want to stop working at 5, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Is it a friend calling you at that time? Is it scheduling something fun and personal that you can be like, okay, I have to do this thing? And sometimes when that time is about to come, when it's, 5 minutes till, I'll take my to-do list and I'll just look at it and I'll kind of grieve a little bit. I'll be like, wow, those dreams over here didn't get done today. And I'll move them over to tomorrow's to-do list, which feels so compassionate. And I do it with compassion. I'm like, I'm sorry you didn't make it today, but your time will come. I talk to them because they are energy. They're part of me. And I just move them to tomorrow, wish them well. And then I kind of I put my devices to sleep. And this has been really fun for me. So I could hum a little lullaby and I turn all the lights off and then I start shutting down. I have a monitor and a computer and I'll turn them off. I'll turn off the lights. And it's very sweet. It's very symbolic for me. It's these things are going to rest and tomorrow or Monday, they'll come back to life. But in the meantime, I'm holding this boundary for myself. That's a really good one. And sometimes I even say out loud to myself, dear ones, I am now transitioning from the energy of work to the energy of rest, relaxation, connection, whatever the intention is for the evening. Because remember, we're constantly checking in with the body. We're constantly setting intention. This is the best way to stay awake and stay conscious. And so it's tonight I will connect with my partner. I will make dinner, Maybe I will watch TV and that's fine, but I'm going to do it consciously. I'm choosing to do it, or maybe I'll see where the night takes me, but I will not return to work. Just holding that intention, dear one. It's really, really helped me. I cannot even tell you, especially as I work from home and the boundaries are so thin between home and work. I mean, there are no boundaries. I have to create them. I have to do this silly little ritual, and it really helps me. All right. And then the last thing I could really think of is let your body lead the way, which we've already talked about. But I think that's the most uncapitalist thing you could do is stay awake, stay in your body, get out of the head, even throughout the workday. Can you just kind of check in? Can you do a little dance? Can you touch your body? And then, yeah, I think I'm going to share this with you in our final practice, actually, which are the mantras. So there's several internalized capitalism mantras that I use, and I would invite you to create your own. But I think right now, since we're at the 5 minutes till mark, I'm going to have us do a little breath practice. So as you are able and ready, dear ones, just closing down the eyes, maybe taking a deep breath in and out. Very good. Just letting your body arrive here again. Noticing where your mind has gone. What else might have hijacked you during this hour. Just coming back to center, this home base of your body. Maybe tapping in again to the heart, the part of you that wants to live awake, wants to be human. I invite you to practice whatever breath practice you wish. It could be square breathing, which is breathing into any count, maybe the count of 4, holding, exhaling, and holding again at the count of the same count. It could be ujjayi breathing, ocean breath. It could be alternate nostril breathing. It could simply be breathing intentionally. You could extend your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale. You could notice the chest rising and falling, or the belly rising and falling, using your hands to guide you. Whatever works for you, dear one. And I'm going to say some mantras for you as you breathe. There is more than enough time. There is a season for everything. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have everything I need. I am a human being, not a human doing. Life is more than to-dos. I am not a robot. I am not a machine. I am a human. I am glad to be human. I am a child of the earth. I have needs. I can meet my own needs. Taking a final deep breath in and let it go. Fantastic job, dear ones. One final reminder. You know, there's a lot of people talking about self-care these days, and I would just like to include a plug that self-care does not require you to buy a product. Self-care does not require you to spend money or have an Instagram-worthy self-care practice. Like, I am a hot mess when I am covered in oil and like massaging my body. You know, like it's not gonna get posted anytime soon. Okay, like it doesn't matter how you look. You know, self-care doesn't require anything but your intention. You know, don't let that be a block or a barrier for you to practice it. And also, there's a lot of people touting self-care for productivity. You know, 5 minutes to meditate for a more productive day. It's like, gag me. That is not okay. That is not healthy. And I know some people might have that as an entry point, and I'm sure I did on my journey. Like, oh, maybe if I'm more productive, you know, I'll try this meditation thing. You know, that is not the point, dear ones. Like, no. Your mindfulness leads to your awakeness, your consciousness. What you do with that is up to you. Let it come from your choice, you know. Live awake, have the courage to live your life awake and to make the decisions for yourself. Get out of that hamster wheel of produce, consume. Make sure you're not hustling for your worthiness and you're reminding yourself, I am worthy. Oh yeah, I am worthy. I do belong. And you're on the right track. And I'm here for you, dear ones. I am. All right. Well, you'll hear the replay soon, and I'll see you next week with another self-love sermon. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm excited to now go and have a restful evening to put all my devices to sleep, and I hope you can do the same, dear ones. Sending you so much love until we meet again. Bye.